In today's lecture, we will see how this transfer matrix method can be extended when damping is also there in the torsional system. The damping in torsional system, as we have seen that it is having basically two elements. One is the shaft. So, we can have damping in the shaft, and you can able to see that this particular damping will be dependent upon what is the relative twist of the shaft. And another kind of damping is at the disc, maybe that is due to whatever the working fluid or lubricant or the coolant which is there surrounding the disc, and in that particular case we may have some kind of dissipation of the energy when this particular fluid will interact with the disc. In actual case, this disc can be a fan or a turbine blade or similar components in the rotating parts. Apart from this, today we will see how we can able to analyze reciprocating engine, especially for torsional oscillation analysis. In this particular case, the main aim of this particular analysis will be that somehow if we can able to convert this particular reciprocating engine, whether it is single cylinder or if it is multi-cylinder engine, to a equivalent rotating components. And once we can able to obtain the equivalent rotating components, we can able to analyze with the methods which we already discussed for multi-disc rotor system. We can able to obtain the free vibration analysis or force vibration analysis of such torsional system. So, let us see the objective of the present lecture. So, we will be analyzing the damped torsional vibration. So, we will be extending the transfer matrix method for this, and another is torsional vibration of reciprocating engine, and in this we will be introducing torsional dampers which will be basically proportional to the relative velocity between two components, and these whatever the torsional damping forces are there, they will be depending upon the rotational speed either of the disc or relative twist of the shaft. And even we will be introducing the concept of equivalent rotating system of reciprocating engine system. So, let us begin with the case in which we have some kind of damper in the shaft. So, shaft you are able to see this is the particular shaft. When we are applying torque at either end of this particular shaft, the material inside the shaft will go under tension and compression. So, we expect that inside the shaft whatever there will be intermolecular interaction between various particles, and that will generate heat, and that particular heat will be dissipated in the form of that will be coming, that will be raising the temperature of this particular shaft, and that will be dissipated to the surrounding. So, you can able to see that some form of energy is getting dissipated because of this. Sometimes we provide some kind of external damping in the shaft. So, we join this particular shaft with some kind of external damper like this. So, when we are applying, when this particular shaft is going on undergoing torsional oscillation, whatever the fluid is there between these two, they will get churned out, and because of this there will be heat generation, and some of the energy of the shaft will dissipate as a heat. So, this is some kind of external damping, and this is the first one is internal damping of the shaft, and this is something like external damping which we are applying. In this particular case, we can able to design the damper so that we can change the damping to the level which we want. So this is external damping. Apart from this, we have rotating disc in the system, which is rotating at very high speed. So you can able to see that when this particular disc is rotating in some fluid media, which is either a working fluid or maybe some kind of lubricant or coolant, then there will be interaction of the solid and the fluid, and because of that we will be having some kind of damping effect, because energy will be getting dissipated from this particular motion, and that is another form of damping which we can have in the torsional system. So let us see how we can able to analyze such system. So this is a picture of the external damper which is added between two discs in the shaft, and generally here this is the damping coefficient, and this coefficient multiplied by the relative velocity between either end of this particular shaft will give us the damping force. So Cs and the relative angular displacement at two ends velocities, dot represent the velocity. So this will be the damping force for this particular kind of external damper, the damping force. Now let us see a multi disc rotor system in which number of discs are there, and disc, because of the working fluid, it is having some kind of damping. So at every place we have added a damper, and the damping coefficient of this disc we are rating as CD, C subscript D, and these are for various discs like n minus 1 disc, nth disc, n plus 1 disc. So each discs are having some dampers. Apart from that, we have damping in the shaft, either in the form of material damping or external damper. In this particular case also, the whatever the damping force will be there, that will be proportional to relative twist of these two discs. And in this both cases, we are considering this particular damping model as proportional damping. So this will be proportional to the relative velocity of the disc or the absolute velocity of the disc, depending upon what kind of damping we are considering. So to develop the transfer matrix, that is the point matrix and the field matrix, as we did earlier, we will be drawing the free body diagram, let us say first of the disc. So this is one particular disc, nth disc, and let us say this particular direction is positive direction for the angular displacement, this particular displacement which we have written here, and will be having some kind of reaction at either end of the disc from the shaft. So this particular reaction is from left hand side of the disc, and there is another one, this one I am representing that as right side of the nth disc. So these are the reactions which are coming from the shaft. Apart from this, there is a damping which is coming from the vibration, that is of the disc damping. So that means this you can able to see is this will be opposite to the motion. So that will be opposite to the motion, because motion direction we have taken right side positive. So, this will be C n or C d n and angular velocity. So, you can able to see that various torques were represented here. So, now we can able to take the relations of the various variables here. So, like because this particular disk is very thin, so you can able to see that either end of the this particular disk will be having same angular displacement. So, this is left of disk nth and this is the right of the nth disk displacement. They are same because this is a thin disk. Apart from this, if we take the torque balance, so you can able to see this particular torque is in the positive direction. So, first torque, then the left side one is in the negative direction and the damping torque is also in the negative direction, and these are the external torque which is acting onto the this particular disk should be equal to the rotary inertia of the disk. That means polar moment of inertia of the disk and the angular acceleration. So, you can able to see that similar to the previous case, we could able to relate various state vectors. Only term, this particular damping term is coming here extra as compared to the previous one. Now, we can able to rearrange this equation. So, because in this particular case we are dealing with, let us say, free vibration. So, whatever the torque which is there, that will be having some amplitude. This amplitude, this is basically complex amplitude, and the frequency of that particular torque is equal to one of the natural frequency of the system, torsional natural frequency of the system. And because of this, obviously you can able to see whatever the response will be, that will also be having same form, in which we will be having some complex displacement, angular displacement and the frequency. This complex displacement will not only contain the amplitude as well as the phase, because there is a damping in the system. So, there will be phase difference between the torque and the displacement. So, this particular complex amplitudes will take care of not only the amplitude, but also the phase. So, these assumed solution, if we substitute in the previous expression, so you can able to see that angular displacements are having single derivative and double derivatives also. So, if we take derivative of this with respect to time, we will get, because this is independent of time, only this quantity is depending upon time. So, that will get derivated. This is the capital phi and E j omega n f t. So, you can able to see that if we take another derivative of this, we will get minus of omega n f square phi, this is the amplitude part, and j omega n f t. So, these expressions we can able to substitute in the previous equation. So, if we substitute, we can able to see that the first term, because is not containing derivatives, so that will be of the same form. Only thing, this will contain now complex displacements. This is from first equation. Second equation contain so many torques. So, we can have T or N. This is j omega t terms I am taking out, because that will be cancelled out throughout the equation. This is second expression, and then we have a damping term. So, minus C d n j omega n f capital phi j omega t e raised to j omega t I am taking out. So, this term will not be there. So, you can able to see that we have expressed this equal to the inertia term. So, here we will be having plus. So, you can able to see this is the first equation, this is the second equation. Now, we can rearrange these equations so that left side and right side terms are in one side and of the equality, and the other part is in the other, so that we can able to write some kind of transfer matrix. So, you can able to see here I have arranged the previous equation, this equation in this particular matrix form as we did earlier. This is the state vector right of nth disk, and this is the state vector left of nth disk, and I have arranged all those terms here. So, you can able to see the first equation is multiplication of this one will be with this. So, this is the first equation, this equation, and second equation is if we expand this particular matrix, we will get that particular second equation. And in more compact form, we are writing this as state vector right of nth disk is equal to point matrix and state vector left of nth disk. So, you can able to see that now point matrix is a complex, as against the previous case it was a real quantity, and this is the extra term which is coming, and the present softwares like MATLAB they can handle this kind of complex matrices. So, those can be used easily. Now, coming to the shaft element. So, we developed a point matrix of a disk in which we consider the damping also. Now, we will come to the development of the shaft element, shaft the field matrix. In that also we will be considering the damping. So, let us see this is shaft element, shaft segment, in which not only it has the stiffness property, but also the damping. So, this particular damping for this particular damping factor, if we multiply with the relative angular velocity of either end of the shaft, we will be getting the damping force. So, you can able to see that now we can able to express the field variable like this. We can able to express the field variable like the torque at left of the nth disk, this side we can able to express as the stiffness of the nth shaft and the relative displacement, angular displacement of these two end of the shaft, plus the damping and the relative angular velocity. So, you can able to see earlier we had only this restoring force, but now we have damping force also in the torque, and because there is no inertia we are considering of the shaft. So, either end of the torque will be equal. Now, let us see how we can able to rearrange these equations. So, first equation, again once we take the solution of these all the torque and the response, if we express for free vibration like this, or even the angular displacements, when we express them like this, and once we substitute this in this equation, we can able to get the torque, which is you can able to see now these are complex amplitude of the displacement, angular displacement, and because the derivative they gave this j omega n f terms. So, now they are relative angular displacement, and this particular equation we can able to again separate. You can able to see here we are keeping all the terms which is having left hand side of the disk terms, and this side we are keeping all the terms which is there in the right side of the disk, so that we can able to write a transfer matrix for such field variable. Here also you can left side and right side. So, these two equation, the first equation and second equation, we can able to combine in this form. So, you can able to see, if you expand the first equation, we will get this one, and second equation we will get this one, and you can able to see that this particular matrix, which is a complex matrix, I am representing as L for nth shaft, and this is the state vector left of n, and this is this particular matrix I am calling as M for nth shaft, and this is the state vector right of n minus 1 station. So, now you can able to see that this particular equation is having not the same form as we had earlier for the without damping case. So, to make the similar form, we need to invert this matrix, or we need to multiply both sides by inverse of L matrix. So, that you can able to see, now we are inverting this L matrix to get, and this inverse of L and M I am calling as field matrix, and the field matrix is multiplication of these two. If we multiply them, we can able to see the field matrix is a simpler, it is having simpler form. So, this is field matrix which includes the damping of the shaft also. So, you can able to see the field matrix is relating the state vector left of nth disk and the state vector right of n minus 1 disk. Now, is having similar form, only thing is the f is complex. So, you can able to see, if we neglect the damping, it is having the exactly same form as we had without damping case. So, once we have obtained this particular field variable and point matrix, field matrix and the point matrix, we can able to see that we can able to get the transfer matrix. So, this is the point matrix relation, and if we substitute the previous expression which includes the field variable, so you can able to see that we can able to relate the state vector right of nth disk and the right of n minus 1 disk, and this P into F is the transfer matrix which relates, you can able to see the right of n minus 1 disk to right of nth disk, and this transfer matrix we can able to get by multiplying P with F, and this is the form of the this transfer matrix. So, you can able to see this is complex, but still the size is 2 by 2. So, once we have obtained the transfer matrix which relates the state vector from right of n minus 1 disk to state vector in the right of nth disk, then you can able to see that whatever the analysis we did for undamped case is valid here. We can able to write for a whole rotor system, we can able to relate the state vector from maybe the extreme left to the extreme right, and once we relate them, we can able to get the overall transfer matrix T matrix, and then we can able to apply the boundary condition as we earlier applied. We have seen several examples of such application of the boundary condition, and from there we can able to get the frequency equation that can be solved to get the natural frequency. So, the overall procedure of solution remains the same, there will not be any change in that. So, I am not repeating the same thing, only thing here is, only difference is the form of the whatever the matrices we got is a complex form, and as such there is not much change in the overall procedure. Now, we will see how we can able to model a reciprocating engine system, especially if we have a multi-cylinder engine. how we can able to analyze the torsional vibration behavior of that, how we can able to obtain the torsional natural frequency and maybe the torsional forced vibration for that particular case. Here, as I explained earlier, the main idea would be to convert all the reciprocating parts to equivalent rotating parts in the main shaft system, and once we can able to convert into equivalent revolving parts, then whatever the analysis till now we have done on the torsional vibration can be applied on that. So, let us see the modeling of the reciprocating engine system. So, in this particular case we can have let us say a 4 cylinder engine. So, these are the 4 engines, reciprocating engines, and apart from this we will be having other accessories like we can have some kind of torsional damper or some flywheel, because the fluctuation of the energy take place because of the firing order of the engines are different. So, to make the supply of the energy more uniform, we provide some kind of flywheel, and then the coupling and maybe generator or similar such parts will be there, but other parts like flywheel, coupling, generator or damper, they are something like revolving parts. But this engine, they have not only revolving part, but some parts are oscillating or some are having pure reciprocating motion. So, now our aim would be to convert this particular engines to equivalent revolving parts. So, you can able to see the converting the torsional damper to revolving part is much easier, or flywheel is much easier, coupling and generators are easier, but this particular thing we will see how we can able to do it, and we will be using very approximate crude method for this particular conversion of the reciprocating parts to the revolving parts. So, we will start with the crank connecting rod. So, you can able to see this is a connecting rod in which one end is big end and another is small end. As such, this particular connecting rod will be a rigid body and mass will be continuously varying from one end to another end. We would like to convert this connecting rod to 2 mass system, and one mass will be generally this big end is connected to the crank and the small end to the piston. So, if we convert this particular system to 2 mass system, 2 mass dynamic system, equivalent dynamic system. So, you can able to see that this will be attached to the crank which will be revolving. So, I am calling this as a mass of the connecting rod which is revolving with the crank, and this one is the mass of the crank which will be attached to the piston. So, this is a reciprocating mass component. So, this 2 masses can be obtained by simple relations. So, like if center of gravity is at G of these 2 systems, where A is the distance from one end to another end and C is this distance, total distance is L, that means A plus C is L. So, approximately this particular mass will be given as total mass of the connecting rod into C, this distance, divided by L. Similarly, this particular mass will be given as total mass of the connecting rod into this distance by L. So, this is approximate relation. So, basically these we are obtaining by ensuring that the center of gravity of these 2 systems are same. Even if we want more accurate calculation of this, we can have there is a moment of inertia of these 2 systems same, and then we can able to get more accurate result. But these are quite good approximations. We can able to use such approximation. Now, coming to the revolving masses at crank. So, polar moment of inertia will be given by the total revolving mass of the crank, and the r is the crank radius. And this revolving mass will be the revolving mass of the crank itself as well as from the connecting rod. So, in the previous slide we obtained this particular mass, what will be the equivalent mass of the connecting rod, which will be having the revolving part, that means this one, because this is connected with the crank, this is connected with the piston. So, this is the total revolving mass at the crank radius, which is coming from crank itself and connecting rod, two parts. Now, coming to the reciprocating mass. In reciprocating mass, let us see, this is a particular engine that is nothing but crank and connecting rod, and here piston is there. So, you can able to see in this particular configuration, this is one of the dead end of the this piston, and this is another configuration in which that is crank is making 90 degree with the previous one. So, if we compare these two, so in this particular configuration, if we try to give some kind of oscillation to this particular crank, because it is dead end, so hardly any motion of the piston would take place. So, velocity of the piston will be nearly 0. If we give a small some kind of oscillation to this crank, the piston will hardly move. That means, for this particular configuration, as such, the piston will not be having any inertia. For this particular configuration, when it is 90 degree, you can able to see, because crank connecting rod length is generally very large. So, if we give some kind of oscillation to this particular crank here, some small amount, this piston will be having same velocity, exactly same velocity, because this crank connecting rod length is very high. So, that means whatever the motion of the crank is taking place, piston will be having same amount of velocity. So, as if this particular piston mass is attached to the crank pin itself. So, that much inertia it will impart. So, you can able to see that in the first case is imparting 0 inertia, in second case exactly the same as the reciprocating part. So, to approximate, we can take average of these two as the rotary inertia of the piston. So, reciprocating part, if when we want to analyze for the polar moment of inertia, so we will be taking half of the reciprocating part is as it is attached at the crank radius. So, this was the previous one which we obtained, this one, and from piston now we are getting this. So, you can see this contains from crank itself and connecting rod, and this is containing from piston and the connecting rod, because earlier we converted the connecting rod to purely rotating and purely reciprocating part. So, this particular is the mass corresponding to this particular component, so because this is attached to the piston. So, this mass will add up to the piston mass. So, you can able to see that now we could able to get the what is the equivalent polar moment of inertia of the whole crank, connecting rod and piston. And once we have done it, we can able to convert the reciprocating mass and the revolving mass to a purely revolving mass system. Now, let us see the torsional stiffness, because the crank is having variable geometry. So, if we want a uniform shaft, So, obviously equivalent uniform shaft. So, torsional stiffness of this system and this system should be same. So, we can able to either if we can do experimentally, we can able to give some twist, and from there we can get the what is the torsional stiffness of this particular crank, and we can able to design, or we can able to get the equivalent uniform shaft from that, or using finite element packages we can able to model this and obtain the torsional stiffness of this, and we can then get the equivalent uniform shaft out of that. So, that we can able to convert the whole reciprocating engine system to uniform shaft system like this. So, these are revolving mass of this engine, this is revolving mass of this engine, and whatever the shaft is there, we can able to obtain equivalent uniform shaft using the analysis of the these cranks, either by experiment or by some kind of FEM packages. So, once we obtain this kind of equivalent revolving system, then we already know the transfer matrix method will be helpful for analyzing such system, or in the subsequent class lectures will be dealing with the finite element method that can be used. In reciprocating engine, as we know, because we have compression stroke, expansion stroke, if it is 4-stroke engine or 2-stroke engine, we have different cycle, and out of these cycles only one is the power stroke in which we get the power, and remaining period the engine takes the energy from the either from flywheel which stores the energy or other rotating parts. So, now you can able to see that there will be a lot of variation of the torque that take place, and these torques are some kind of periodic in nature. Even if it is multi-cylinder engine, we will be having some periodic variation of the torque, and these torques once is periodic. So, we can able to see that using Fourier series we can expect there will be some fundamental frequency and their multiples of harmonics which will be there in the system. So, now let us see if we know the torque variation which is periodic in nature, how we can able to get the various components of the higher harmonics using some kind of least square fit. So, for that particular case, let us say the torque variation in the reciprocating engine machinery, that is this is the torque variation. Obviously, with angular displacement of the crank, the torque will vary. So, because this is periodic, we can able to write this in the form of Fourier series. So, in which we will be having some constant term and sine and cosine terms, and depending upon the accuracy we want, we can take n of any order, but n of 10th or 20 will be good enough for any practical purpose. And as we know, this particular constant is nothing but the mean of this particular torque, which is expressed like this. So, once we know the variation of the torque, how the torque is varying with theta or I should say theta. So, for 0 degree, 10 degree, 15 degree like this, what are the torques? We this kind of data if we have, we can able to get the mean of that particular torque, and these A1, A2, AN and B1, B2 all BN, these we can able to obtain by the following procedure. So, let us say we are expressing that previous expression for theta 1 for one of the value, because C naught, once we know the T variation, we can able to get the mean of this. So, I have taken this in the left hand side, and I am expressing these terms. So, you can able to see instead of now theta, every place I am writing theta 1 in the first equation, because I am expressing that this t at theta 1. Similarly, I can able to write this for theta 2, same equation I am writing for theta 2. So, here also you can able to see all theta will be replaced by theta 2, all this constant will remain same, they will not change with the angle. Then for theta m, we can able to write. So, here theta m will be replaced by theta m. I am saying that m is greater than 2n. Because in this particular case we are truncating this Fourier series after nth terms. So, all the higher order terms I am neglecting it. So, if we neglect this, you can able to see that we have for A n terms, for B we have another n terms. So, 2 n terms are there. So, the total number of equations which we should have, that means total number of information of the t at various theta we should have should be equal to 2n or more than 2n, then we can able to get these constants. So, all those previous equation I have rearranged in a matrix form. So, you can able to see that there are 2n unknowns in the form of a and b's, which I have put in this vector. This is all the terms. So, if we see previous equation, so these equations in the left right hand side I have arranged in here in the left hand side in this particular form, and all the terms which were there in the left hand side I have brought here in the right hand side. So, you can able to see that these are total m equation, which is either equal to 2n or more than 2n. So, if it is this particular matrix I am writing as K matrix. This unknown vector of A and B I am writing as nu, and this is the torque variation which we have information I am writing as T matrix, and you can able to see these subscripts are representing the size of the matrices. And if m is not equal to 2n, it is greater than 2n, then this K matrix will be rectangle matrix. So, for that particular case, obviously, if we want to know the nu, we need to invert the K matrix, but rectangle matrix cannot be inverted directly. So, we will be pre-multiplying the K matrix both sides of this equation, pre-multiplying the transpose of the K matrix. Now, you can able to see that this particular matrix will be square matrix, and this can be inverted. So, this is the thing we have done here. So, this we inverted, and this is this particular matrix. So, this is called pseudo inverse, or basically this is nothing but the least square fit. So, you can able to see now we can able to get all these constants, which is in fact representing what various sine and cosine harmonics are contributing to the t. So, you can able to see that the torque we have expressed in terms of sine and cosine, their higher harmonics. So, obviously, while designing these frequencies and the natural frequency of the system should not coincide, otherwise we will be having torsional resonance condition. Now, let us take one example, especially of a multi-rotor system, because in the today's lecture we have seen that a multi-cylinder engine can have a multi-rotor system, revolving system. So, with the transfer matrix method, we will try to analyze a bigger system, and we will see the capability of the transfer matrix method, how powerful it is for large system. So, for this particular case, you can able to see, I should show first maybe this drawing. You can able to see we have 4 discs, they are connected by a uniform shaft, and shaft is supported at ends by frictionless bearing, and various property of these shafts. Let us see the various distances and various properties of the mass and their size of the disc, and like here we are considering the thin disc. So, we can able to obtain the polar moment of inertia of the disc using these informations. So, all the geometrical mass and various distances are provided here of the disc, even the modulus of rigidity is given. So, we can able to use this to obtain polar moment of inertia of the various discs. So, you can able to see there are 4 discs having different masses. These are thin disc, they have different diameters. So, we have calculated their polar moment of inertias. These are the polar moment of inertias. Other geometrical parameter can be obtained like J pi by 32 d4, diameter we know. Various shaft segment lengths are they are given here. So, basically if we see, because this is free supported and we are neglecting the mass of the shaft, inertia of the shaft. So, the shaft segment which is here and this end, as such during torsional oscillation they will be moving along with this disc, that this particular shaft segment will move along with this and this will move along with this as a rigid body. So, there is as such they will not contribute into the torsional vibration of the system, because they will not get twisted, because there is no inertia attached to this. So, only these segments will be of relevance. So, we can able to relate the state vector, like we can able to, if we are giving the station number 1, 2, 3, 4. So, state vector which is here right of 4th disc and state vector here right of 1st disc, they can be related like this. We already know how to obtain such relations. So, this particular field you can able to see there is so many point and field matrices are getting multiplied, and point matrix and field matrix, as here we are not considered damping, but only the stiffness property and the inertia properties are there. So, you can able to see that this is the overall transfer matrix and free boundary conditions are there. So, for that case we have once the overall transfer matrix second row and first column component will give this as a frequency equation, and if we express this as a function of omega and f, and if we plot this particular function with respect to omega and f for various steps. So, you can able to see that particular function will vary, and wherever it will intersect with the 0 line, they will be the root of the equation. So, at 0 we expect 1 cut, these are the natural frequency of the system. So, just by plotting this particular function we will get the natural frequency of the system. Here you can able to see we have summarized the natural frequency which we got the intercepts, and once we have obtained the natural frequency we can able to again get the eigenvector. Let us say for one of the natural frequency for 1400 radians per second, this particular equation will give, let us say if we are assuming one of the angular displacement as unity, we can able to get the angular displacement at the right of disk 1 using this relation. These are all matrices which we related earlier. So, we know the state vector in the left of 1, and then we can able to obtain the right of 4th on using this, because we know natural frequency we can able to substitute to get this, and we can march back to get state vector at various locations like this, at left of 2 or right of 2, right of 3, intermediate transfer matrix can be used to obtain the relative displacement. So, first term is the displacements. So, they can be extracted to obtain what is the relative displacements of the various disks, and that can be plotted as a mode shape. In the present lecture, we started with a damped torsional vibration, and we developed the transfer matrix for such system. That means point matrix and the field matrix we developed. Then we saw how we can able to convert a multi-cylinder reciprocating engine to a equivalent revolving mass system, and once we have converted that, also if there is a variation in the geometry in the shaft in the form of crank, that also can be converted to equivalent uniform shaft, and we can able to analyze using conventional revolving mass system case. And at the end we have seen 4 disc torsional vibration case through transfer matrix method, and how the numerical method can be used to obtain the natural frequency and its mode shapes. Once we get the natural frequency, using various intermediate transfer matrices can be used to obtain the relative angular displacements of various disks, and that is nothing but the mode shapes. So, in the next lecture we will extend the same torsional vibration for more advanced technique, that is a finite element method.